Okay. I will kick things off. Uh, Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ira Marcus, Director of Partnerships for Creed AI. The topic of cognitive warfare is a pressing one for the DoD and the American public as well. Truly understanding cognitive warfare includes analyzing data, discovering trends, and analyzing influential narratives. Today's webinar is focused on visualizing the emerging narratives and the role they play in cognitive warfare. Because in cognitive warfare, narratives don't just describe events, they shape perception, drive decisions, and ultimately influence outcomes on the ground and with the local populace. But first, let's start with the definition of cognitive warfare. Cognitive warfare is the deliberate use of information, narratives, and psychological techniques to influence how individuals and groups perceive reality, make decisions, and take action, shaping outcomes in ways that serve strategic objectives without necessarily resorting to physical force. Leveraging Accrete's Argus for social media influence tool, we'll walk through a live and highly relevant example, the US military presence in Japan. This issue is playing out across multiple narrative fronts: political, military, economic, and humanitarian. And it's a perfect demonstration of how Argus detects, tracks, and surfaces insights from complex information environments. But let's start by highlighting how and why narrative intelligence is important and relevant now. Adversaries exploit narratives to erode trust, fracture alliances, and weaken public support. They are investing deeply in influence campaigns. For the US military, this means narrative intelligence isn't optional. It's a force protection measure and can have significant geopolitical impact. Without visibility into how narratives are evolving, the US risks being reactive. Proactive intelligence narratives, on the other hand, let commanders and policymakers anticipate shifts, understands how adversaries and alliances are shaping discourse, to seize opportunities to reinforce alliances and credibility before those windows close. Argus for social media influence help pull disparate media streams into clear visual story of narrative evolution, pinpointing where adversaries are probing, where allies need support, and where strategic communications can turn a potential vulnerability into an advantage. We hope you'll find this webinar and discussion interesting and informative, and more importantly, become curious about what narratives are benefiting or harming the US and its allies. Tom Plant, Associate Product Manager for Accrete, will drive the conversation in the demo. Tom joined Accrete following a Fulbright grant with the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in Estonia to research media literacy and engineer a web-based simulation to promote resiliency to disinformation. In 2020, Tom co-founded DisInfoLab, the US's first undergraduate disinformation research lab housed at the College of William & Mary. He is a member of the World in 2050 Brain Trust, a group of local experts from academia, media, policy, and business. With that out of the way, if at any point you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. And Tom, you have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Really looking forward to this. As you could tell from Ira's introduction, I love this stuff. I've been in this space for a little bit now, starting in college and then going on until now. So this stuff is, it matters to me. Narratives, misinformation, disinformation. And I really remember, back when I first started it, military fellows I would work with would ask me, they would say, Tom, misinformation and disinformation has been around forever. There's been propaganda forever. If you're going to do policy research about this, you need to figure out what's genuinely new and what's changing. And so that really got me started on figuring out, we've had this history of information operations, cognitive warfare, narratives online, what is actually changing. And so that's what today's going to be all about, is going to be talking about, genuinely what has changed. It's really interesting. I promise, it's not just social media. It's not just that it exists, but there's something very fascinating about it. And then showing how, one, that plays out in this case study that we're doing with Japan. But two, how the product that I work on, Argus Social, is built for this change. It's built for the new, what's changing in social media and cognitive warfare. So I'll be interlocking those three stories as we go through this agenda, that cognitive warfare is changing, that Argus was built for this reality, and that the Japan case study shows it in action. Um, so that'll kind of be the main format. So to briefly kind of introduce, those three stories, on the first front, like cognitive warfare, the big change that we're seeing is that it's shifted from social media based on gigantic accounts trying to build up bot networks to push out messages to algorithms based on attention. So whereas before you had to build up a giant audience, adversaries had to create these botnets to get a message out, now narratives will promote posts that perform well. They will promote narratives that capture people's attention. So it's very much like even the playing field. If you are a small creator and if you have a message that genuinely resonates, the algorithm is picking it up, people are seeing it. So it gets this it's scary. I mean, like adversaries have a direct line to the target audience that they want to reach. They don't need to build up botnets anymore. They don't need to do all this stuff because as long as the content resonates, the TikTok algorithm's going to take care of the rest. The Instagram algorithm's going to take care of the rest. So that's kind of like, that'll be the big change. How are our adversaries shifting to this new environment? And therefore, what do we need to do to react to that? So the Argus tool exists to analyze narrative competition, and we built it so that we see narratives as they evolve over time, so you can understand what's grabbing attention. Like on the policy side, it's all about like attention. It's about what people care about, not just, what has the most bots talking about it. It's genuinely what has the most reach and what people are seeing. So in this case study, we're using Japan to talk about it. We're talking about proactive perception management. If we have, U.S. interests in Japan, base building, ally building, what do we need to know about how they perceive the United States? What narratives could be damaging coming from adversaries, coming from our own partners, coming from just emerging domestically? What do we do about them? So the mission stakes are pretty big. I think, in the past, having studied this, I wrote a white paper back in college that ended up winning a national competition with UT Austin about the consequences of narratives on the rally around the flag effect. The US and its allies, we have these geopolitical goals. We have these national security goals. And usually that has been bipartisan in the past. A lot of people would usually rally around the flag. That's the whole catchphrase. That was what I wrote my paper about. But what we're seeing now is as narratives in the information environment is changing, as cognitive warfare is opening up and more actors are in the space, we're seeing a lot of damage for US perception. So, in the past, the US, whether doing troop actions in the Indo-Pacific region or in the Caribbean, more recently, we're becoming more flat-footed in our responses. There are narratives flooding about abandonment, negative towards the US, and those are spreading faster than I think a lot of our analysts are actually able to detect, because it's the algorithms. You have to work at the speed of relevance. So if we don't see like what narrative is winning, what narrative is gaining attention, we are ceding the cognitive terrain to our allies, and any kind of, foreign policy that we're doing, base building, deploying troops, withdrawing troops is going to be manipulated. And with this new information environment, we have to be very careful about it. So that's kind of the main dilemma we're focusing here. So this is kind of showing you why this matters, what is changing. Cognitive warfare is different. We don't need bot armies anymore. We just need narratives that are sticky enough for the algorithms to pick up. So that's, it's pretty existential. There's a lot to talk about here, a lot to do with this, but I will leave it there for the discussion on what is actually changing so that we can really dive in and do this case study. But the big takeaway is something is changing. Our adversaries are changing their strategies. We need to change our strategies in response. So Argus, the tool, gives kind of that clear daily picture of narratives. Right after this slide, I'm going to walk through like the core functionalities of the tool before we hop into the case study. Otherwise, it might be kind of confusing. We'll cover the tool and then show you the story in the tool. So first, I'm just going to cover how it works. But really, the big thing we're understanding here is how narratives are rising and falling, what's gaining attention, why it resonates, and what to do about it. Usually, with a lot of OSINT tools, it tells you the what, but not the why. And so this product is all about the why as well. So specifically, here's the goal of this case study. We are going to look at how damaging narratives around the United States withdrawal gain traction in Japan. People talking about the US should withdraw, or the US is a good partner. We're going to talk about those. There's a really cool story to parse through, and we're going to demonstrate how Argus surfaces those, so we can like preempt any like adversary framings or any bad narrative framings. So here we go, core functions. You start by building a network in the tool. So I have a Japan network set up. You seed it with accounts, you seed it with hashtags, you seed it with sounds, and you seed it with phrases. The product itself will visit all of these sources every single day, grab all the data from it, and start to analyze and cluster it. So we do it on this daily basis because one, it allows like for continuous analysis, so you can see things over time. But two, it waits a day so you can actually see how these conversations build. So we give it that time to let them like fester a little bit, and then we analyze them. Next day, pull everything in, analyze, compare to the day before. So you're seeing how things evolve. And so that's what you're seeing in these photos here. You see the knowledge graph. Those are all the sources, all the narratives, who's participating in them. Our AI models actually cluster let me use a different phrase. Our AI models actually create these narratives. They create the narratives based on your use case. So that's why this tool, it's very much an agentic technology. So when you're setting up your network, you're not just telling it what data to pull from, you're telling it, what is your use case? What do you want to understand? I told this agent, I want to know all about perceptions of the US and Japan. I want to know what people care about when it comes to Japan and when it comes to the US and all the geopolitical information in it. All the accounts and things I chose to seed it with, those are all related to geopolitics in Japan, popular culture in Japan, things where these conversations could be happening. And then in the third slide, what you're able to see is with all this data, with all this technology, you're able to understand the rise and fall of these narratives over time. We're going to focus on just one today about Japan. Throughout the product, it's all supported by an AI agent chat, which is not just like, it's not just ChatGPT, it's actually a multi-agent framework, which means you're typing messages in the chat. I want to know the narratives about US perception in Japan. I want to know what the comments are saying in response to US base building. I want to find the most popular post about the US base in Okinawa, things like that. The chat will take that, turn it into code, send that code to the database, grab the data, and return it. The agent can also produce reports. These are really interesting and very useful. People like these a lot because they're like you do a lot at once. Reporting is really annoying, and having the agent compile all this data for you is extremely helpful. The product's all AWS hosted and secure. So you're probably thinking, why Japan? We chose this case because it is super interesting. I mean, there's a great story to tell here. It's a live contest going on in the information space from one of our allies. Perception of the US matters a lot, and it has been changing. And it directly affects the US security posture. So, we're going to dive into that here. So here we go. We're hopping in with kind of like the network here. This is kind of what you see when you first get into the product. As I'm going to walk through it like as if I were an analyst. So like I'm seeing in this network hundreds of sources from Telegram, TikTok, X, Instagram. We're collecting information from them every day. And this is what you're seeing. You're seeing these narratives on the dashboard. The picture might be a little bit small, but we're going to zoom in a second so you can actually see it. And having this narrative level understanding is just, it's beautiful because it's like, as a former policy researcher, I still write, but I'm not doing it. I'm doing, of course, this product full time. It's just, it brings order to the information overload. And that's why I love it so much. So we're going to start out at the most broad view of the topic we're talking about today. So I'm going to signpost here a little bit, but we're going to start at the most high level. What is the major topic that the product surfaced to us that we care about? Then we're going to dive in. Okay, with that main topic, what are the events that were like part of shaping this perspective over time? Those are what we call micro narratives. So the topic is the macro narrative. Then we have the micro narratives. Those are like the individual stories. And then we can jump a layer lower. What are the posts that are part of that narrative? And how do the comments react to it? It's very much like stimulus and reaction, and you're able to dive in. So this macro narrative here that we're starting out with is Japan's views on US military presence and defense strategies amid diplomatic tensions. this is a personally AI generated category for us. It knows my use case. It knows I want narratives related to that. So that's how it's going to package them for me. The micros are the spikes driving the trends. You can see U.S. reaffirms defense commitment to Japan. That's an example of a micro narrative. Got a lot of attention at that moment. And so we can understand, here's the spike. Here's where we need to focus on. Oh, here the conversation died down. So let's dive in. We're going further. You're going into the micro narratives. This is the next level. So we're able to understand those specific events. I just showed you one of them. It is this one right here, reaffirms defense commitment. If we go back on this page, you can see all those micro narratives and how the events change over time. So here are the main parts of the story that I found out from using this network. There's this tight story of, at first, there are narratives about alliance strengthening. There's concern in Japan about PRC, PRK, US is doing military exercises, people are happy, people are excited. An incident in Okinawa is letter B, where there's a case of sexual misconduct that starts to bring in a lot of backlash towards the US locally in Okinawa. Part C, it expands more nationally. The tariffs from the US and broader conversations make this backlash towards the US much wider. And we're going to see how that plays out. And then finally, we have the topic of foreign influence. This one was really interesting because sort of at the end of the timeline, nearing some of the elections in Japan, we saw a lot of discussion come up about like foreign interference in the information space. And so this is kind of one of those unknown unknowns that the tool can raise for you. It's saying, here's all this stuff about US perception, and then boom, here's this thing about China. You need to know it so you can tap into it. So it really helps you get those unknowns. So here's the story. We're gonna hop in with the first one here. And so this is where we start out with with alliance strengthening, very positive. The US-Japan alliance is seen as stabilizing against China and the PRK. There's an opportunity here for like good, favorable framing. Right here, you're seeing a screenshot of the narrative page. So this is like when you click on one of those narratives, you get the description, you get the posts from it. This is just part of it. If you scroll, you get a bunch of posts, and I have screenshots of those later. But you can see, like, they're talking about F-35s. They're emphasizing the US's role as a strategic ally. We have 50 posts in this narrative, 2.6 million views and reach. So very popular, high attention compared to the rest, because you saw those spikes earlier on. This was one of those first spikes. Let's dive into the posts. We want to know, okay, that's the narrative. As an analyst, we don't need to know the high level. We need to know the high level backed up with the low level. So we start to get into the posts here. So what you can see here are some of the representative posts. There's recent joint exercises focused on nuclear deterrence, reliance on US support. Japan is upgrading its capabilities with F-35Bs, long-range missiles, UAVs. One of the things I want to share here is, sorry, I just saw the chat. So I'll get some of these Q&As at the end. Thank you for adding them. One of the cool capabilities I want to highlight here is that when we're analyzing posts, we're not just looking at text. We are looking at images. We are looking at videos. We're looking at the audio from videos. You could have like a video with foreign audio spoken, and the product will download that video, download the audio, transcribe the audio, translate the audio, compare it to the video, compare it to the caption, and give you a complete summary of that post. So every narrative you have is representative of everything in that post. We're not skipping out on anything. So you can see this video vision post here is talking about specifically what it's seeing in this image to get that like very like low level information. And then this next post here, also showcases some of these more granular level items. I have another one here. This is about the US military joint exercises that were received very, highly. So we were able to see, positive sentiment. We're starting out on a pretty good note. Doesn't last. It doesn't last. So the core message of like this part B, is safety and community burden. The narrative takes a negative turn. When we were looking at the spikes, this is like spike 2. There was some misconduct in Okinawa, and this incident sparked more regional outrage that later expands nationally, but we'll stay here, regional. So this is a key moment to engage early and address concerns. So we can see here that this narrative that we surface, has quite a few posts, over 100 posts here with over 10 million views. So big discussion about this topic where the narrative here is that US bases are actually compromising some of our safety and security, and activists in Okinawa are highlighting crimes and misconduct involving US personnel, um, saying that, hey, this is, the US is not not helping us out here, not being very great. So if we look at the posts themselves, we have some local news outlets here saying like there's been this Marine and soldier are facing sexual assault charges. Both are denying allegations, sentenced to 7 years, and the pressers, local coverage are elevating public safety concerns around the base communities. Some more posts. I mean, there were a lot of posts on this. Just more examples to show you like how entrenched this narrative was, and how many people were genuinely concerned about it. And we don't just see it in terms of the news outlets, because that narrative, that was news outlets, right? Then it's you don't need to just look at the news outlets. You also need to look at the responses. And what this product does so well is it gives you the why. It tells you the what with our narratives, and then we have comment conversations to support it. So if we have this like event, this narrative going on, what are the comments saying about it? A lot of OSINT tools don't actually collect comments, and that's something that sets us apart. We collect and analyze these comments to make sure we understand what people are saying. And we see that, yes, there is major comment support for this narrative. People are expressing frustration over the bias of this mayor surrounding these decisions and charges and these criminal situations. We have these comments here, very upset, clearly. In the product, you're able to see like, hey, what are the most liked comments within this comment narrative? So yeah, people upset. Jail for all involved, they say, beneath a jail. Now, part C is where things get a little bit bigger. These narratives, there are multiple narratives going on at once, where that outrage towards the US starts to expand and become really large. We see like multiple narratives. So this is that like really big spike that we saw. We're seeing a couple things here. So the overall message is that there is a growing push for sovereignty, independence, and self-defense. We don't need the US. US perception is dropping here amid political debates and amid US tariffs. So those are the narratives we have here. We have 76 posts about the tariffs, saying, hey, we should reduce reliance on US forces. We should reinterpret Article 9 in Japan, which is all about like the ability to expand militarily. We need to invest in self-defense. This is what the comments are saying. This is what the narratives are saying. Meanwhile, this upcoming election in July was all about the idea that, people started saying, okay, election's coming up. With all of this stuff about the US in our head, we're saying, we got to stand on our own feet. This is important to us. So we're seeing these posts here, more representative posts, because for each of these examples, I don't want to just tell you like, here's the narrative. I want to show you like the posts that are comprising them. So here, election debates are calling for US troop withdrawal, unarmed neutrality, independence, and not just defense, but like food, energy, and security, because of course the tariff conversation was going on. It was about more than just defense, but it's relevant. So it's all in light of these mounting tariffs, like what's going on? What do we need to solve? Now here we have sorry, just looking in chat here for a second. We got the Q&A. The defense autonomy. This is the next part of the story. This is part of the defense autonomy story. We're still in part C of it. So Japan is, reassessing its reliance on the military, understanding the US. Japan canceled a meeting with the US following these demands for like increased defense spending. We can actually see that favorable views among the US dropped from 85.5% in 2022 to 55% in 2025. That's a nice statistic that we caught from one of the posts we brought in. And so you're able to get like all of this, intelligence here about, what's really going on. We look at the comments. What are the comments saying too? Here's a comment conversation saying like, Japan's got to reclaim its sovereignty by closing these bases. Japan's got to reinterpret Article 9 to defend itself without US reliance. This is all happening as we get into August. It's getting millions of views, thousands of comments. It's referencing some of the historical context as well here. talking about like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki shaping these current sentiments and helping or forcing and influencing the population to say perception of US is negative. Now, finally, part 4 of the story, or letter D, we're getting into that last spike. So we understood that, just to recap it so far, there was positive sentiment and perception towards the US with base building and military. And then we get into a regional spark of outrage with Okinawa. Then we get into this much larger conversation about the US with elections and tariffs. And now we're getting into this unknown unknown, which is a really cool insight that the product surfaced about backlash against Japanese media, suspicions of Japanese media for anti-Japanese bias, accusations of China meddling in the information environment. This is a cool narrative that started to peak around this time, and it's really relevant to the conversation. It presents an opportunity that the US could engage in. It's, one of those, I'll use the same phrase. It's an unknown unknown. You didn't know that this was important until you know that it's happening, and then you figure out why it's important. So that's what this product can do as well. The agent is able to surface this information to you. So there's concern over, Chinese land purchases in Hokkaido. It's framed as a security risk. There's accusations of influence in politics. They're using, this quote like this, a silent invasion rhetoric. And so this also presents an opportunity. So here's that recap again, because I know that was a lot of information to cover, but here's like that broad sweeping view of the story. We're seeing that attention relevant to the topic of US perception in Japan didn't just shift in attention, but it shifted substantively too, talking first about strategic support due to fear over China and PRK, and then shifting locally to Okinawa, outrage at the US, grows more nationally when it comes to US tariffs in light of the elections that are happening. And then kind of in this time frame that we were looking at, culminates with this discussion of Chinese influence in election conversations in the security space. So these are all of these steps are different opportunities where if I were a US analyst and I were using this tool, I would know I gotta participate here. Like we need to do something about this. This is an opportunity to engage. So what do you do about it? We just went over the full thing. This part of the presentation, to kind of wrap us up here, is really about like, what are the actions I could take? We just did like a very retrospective view. Here is the whole story. But if I were in that, like, what would Argus help me do that I couldn't do manually, couldn't do with other OSINT tools? So we just need to know, like, why did the sentiment change and what could we have done about it? A manual workflow would have meant, doing Boolean searches. You're going to get a bunch of posts coming in. You're going to have to sort them yourself. You get a lot of noise in the mix. You have to compare across platforms, Reddit, Twitter, Instagram. You're pulling these together. I've done this because I did a lot of this research in the past, and it takes a long time. I did a lot of like manual sentiment analysis. I tried some automated sentiment analysis back in like 2021, 2020, and it was not good. I would have missed it if I were the analyst. I wouldn't have gotten to these concerns right away. But with the Argus view, we're getting these daily narrative clustering. So I have lots of networks that I work with. This one is on Japan. I check it every day. I can just see, hey, what's happening? Is this macro narrative on US perception? Is it shifting over time? What's new today? Is there a spike in attention? Did attention decline? If so, why? And so I'm able to go and look at the macro narrative, the micro narratives, and then the responses to those micro narratives. Those are those comment conversations. Again, this is something that Argus is very special in, because we have these comments and we cluster them in terms of narratives. So you're able to see not just what's happening, but how people respond to it. And I think like the big takeaway with the manual and Argus split is that like so much of this depends on clarity. It's not just about like a fire hose of posts coming at you. It's about understanding at a day-by-day level, like, how is the conversation moving? Is this something we need to care about? Is this something we don't need to care about? So with the analyst workflow, you're able to get into this 4-step process. of detect, decide, act, and assess. So the detection is like you're looking at these narratives coming into the product. You can see an example here in the chat. I use the AI chat like all the time. This product is an agent. You're meant to interact with it. You're meant to do all your data analysis in the product without typing a single line of code. So in here, I'm like asking, tell me the top narratives about, XYZ thing. Tell me the top comment narratives. It's pulling all these narratives in, summarizing them for me. I'm going to switch to the next slide really quickly just to show you how it cites those micro narratives too. So you're able to, start in this view, you get your, broad summary and you're like, okay, good to know. I want to know the specific information. So that's when you drill down, you click sources, you click into the micro narratives, you're able to see the data, the quantitative with the qualitative. Then you're able to decide, is this, inflection point valuable? Like, do I need to know about it? If so, then I act. That's where you can like use this strategic understanding that you have of the information environment and engage local messengers, take a positive story, amplify it, react to a negative story, reassure the population. Can kind of monitor. You want to know, like, is there a 72-hour indicator here? Is this thing lasting? Is this thing not? And so you're able to like get these concerns. Part of the agent's capabilities, of course, include report generation. So you can have reports sent to your email inbox every day that give you the information you need to detect and decide. And then you can program the agent. You can upload, your MISO framework. You can upload other information you have as documents, as PDFs to the agent. And you can even have it start to like respond to some of your concerns. Like say, I actually did this in a network myself. It was like mis and disinformation aligned with Russia. I uploaded a mis and disinformation framework. And I said, if you encounter a new narrative that is gathering traction and appears to be pretty damaging, here's the framework that you need to counter it. And so I had a bunch of information in this policy framework that I had put together during my time in Estonia and was able to use that to actually get these proactive narratives out of it. So once you take your action, then you can start to see, like, you can monitor the network in the days following. These are like your measures of effectiveness. Did the reassurance grow? Is the negative framing falling? Is it stabilizing? What can I see that helps me understand if my action that I took based on this information worked, based on this intelligence? How do you do that? You got to know the core audience concerns. We saw here are the 4 things we saw. We saw that there was a concern about local safety. There was a concern about Japan's autonomy. There was this economic tension with tariffs, and there was this foreign influence anxiety. As I said at the top, social media algorithms are going to determine what messages reach audiences. It's not about bot networks anymore. It's not about how many followers you have. As long as your message is going to get in that algorithm and it's connecting with people, it's going to be pumped out to everyone. TikTok's really good at this. Like, that's why I see like random trends happening with like 3 likes, because TikTok knows, hey, people are going to like this. That's actually how the algorithm works. Is it will test out new posts by like, say like I post something for the first time, it'll test it out with a couple of users. If it seems like they're responding well, my post gets shot out to a bunch of other people. So that's why when you are using this tool, it's providing you with the core audience concerns that will help your message get picked up by this algorithm because you're speaking directly to audiences. This is what people do for successful political campaigns too. They speak directly to the audience's concerns and it helps them. And that's what we're doing here because we can see the audience's concerns playing out in real time because we know where their attention is going. We saw here, inflection point 1 was the post-exercise coverage. This is part of, I could have taken action here. I would have hopped in with the joint drills. I would have been seeing people are liking this. People are talking about this. They're scared about China, and we need to reassure them. I also know that they don't want to be provoked. They don't want to go to war. So there's an opportunity here to amplify reassurance and deterrence themes, lock in this framing, protection, not provocation, while our sentiment is favorable. And then I could see, is this working? Is this working in my network? If not, obviously I didn't take any action. I was at a Crete, not pumping out messages to the information environment. we see that there's a negative, the negative inflection point came up with people really reacting poorly to the US. So again, there's an opportunity here. If I were an analyst, if I were looking at this day by day, I would have known, let me hit the rapid local engagement. Let me acknowledge what happened. We need to push out remedies. And we need to simultaneously amplify all these non-security benefits that we're providing to communities too. We need that reframing because, say there's this negative narrative, taking down a bot network is not going to get rid of that narrative. What we need to do is speak to the audience directly and outcompete the bad narrative. So overall, here's what you could say. There were those two opportunities there, but here's, this sort of strategic overall view. Allied training and modern equipment are protecting civilians to keep Japan off the battlefield. We're preparing so our communities in Japan don't have to. This was a response from the agent. I asked the agent, based on what we're seeing here, what's a good US narrative that can tap into the audience, get rid of this anti-US sentiment and really help us. So it analyzed all of the data and gave us this. And it lands because it speaks to the reassurance concern and taps into what people really fear. So that is kind of all here. I just want to end with some of the more strategic takeaways, just to wrap up sort of the policy talk, is that the information environment has changed, and therefore adversary strategies have changed. Our defenses must adapt. So we need to be able to detect what our adversaries are doing and be proactive about it. Let's outcompete them. We need to compete in the intention environment, seeing and understanding and shaping narratives in real time. So these slides will probably be available, but here are some of those policy takeaways. Chase those narratives, measure attention, shape with proactive messaging. And so with that, I'm going to leave it there for the presentation and shift into the Q&A portion. So, Ira, go ahead.
Okay, Tom, question number one. How is this different from OSINT social listening tools?
Yeah, one of the parts that I obviously joined Accrete after my work time in NATO in Estonia, what stood out to me so much that makes this tool different than other OSINT tools is that it is at the strategic narrative level. And I was like, this tool is like, it's doing what the researchers are saying. So the components of that are we cluster narratives, we measure attention, and we do this in a network-based way. So it's not just about these vanity metrics of how many posts are in a narrative, but it's like, how are people talking about this narrative? If there are two conversations going on at once, what is eclipsing the other? We have capabilities that set us apart. One of the most mature models that we have is the video vision model. So we're looking at everything in a post and boiling that up to the narrative level. We're looking at videos in other languages, extracting that information, summarizing it, and factoring it into our analysis. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. How do you account for narratives in other languages or being spoken out loud?
Oh, great. That's it's a good segue from the last question. I can go into it in a little bit more detail, which is that, so I just mentioned that we're extracting audio, transcribing it, and summarizing it. To go into a little bit more depth, let me get the numbers. We are doing 243 languages, written languages, so we can translate those, and then 99 spoken languages. So we're transcribing those and translating them. They cover I think it's 95% roughly of all the volume of spoken language, including some of these regional dialects, as long as they're popular enough. So we're not missing what these posts are talking about. As you can see, actually, this is a good example. Whole use case we just went in was all in Japanese. The videos, the posts, those were all in Japanese. You could see probably in my screenshots, it said see translation and original text. They were all clicked because I had to translate each of them or else I would have no idea what they were talking about.
Very good. And how fast does the product get data from different sources?
We are getting data on a daily cadence. We're always downloading the data, but we are updating the narratives on a daily basis. And that kind of helps you get into that nice detect, decide, act, and assess loop. Uh, well, I guess the more formal terminology, like your OODA loops. Um, but where you need to get information, you need to detect it, you need to like evaluate it. Is this big enough to have to act on? And then you do something about it. And so with our narratives coming in day by day, we're able to get a good view of what's happening, what's changing over time. In the use case, that would have been looking at that US perception narrative, see what's new in it. But I could have easily set up that same network, but talking about economic concerns. Maybe I wanted to measure like attitudes in Japan towards their economy. I would do the same thing. I would go to that network. I would see the narratives that are most relevant. I would see the updates in them. I would see what's happening, and I would see how people are talking about it. I'd probably schedule a report so I could get all this sent to me automatically to my email inbox. But I like going in the tool, obviously, because it's something I work on every day.
And do you offer any customizations on the reporting views for customers? Is that something the AI component can support?
Yes, absolutely. So the whole product, like it's this agentic technology, which I know is an abstract term. So more concretely, like when you set up the network, you're giving it prompts on what it should analyze, what your use case is, what you're interested in, and it's going to change how the AI models work and analyze your posts. So we're able to work at the model level. Let me give a quick example of that before I hop into the report. So say, you are interested in specifically like the appearance of like US military in videos. That you put it in the agent prompt when you're setting up your network. I want to track like videos and pictures of US military. The video vision model, it always is going to summarize the video and it's always going to give you that information from the video. But with that prompt, it will specifically look for US personnel and extract that in a separate section so that you can start to just sort. You can sort the product's chatter page, which is, we call it the chatter page. It's the raw repository of all sources, of all posts. You can filter it by like, US military personnel, and it will just show those posts, which is really cool. With reporting, it is just as customizable. So to address that part of your question, I go into the chat. I can say like, hey, I want like a new report cadence on US perception in Japan. I want to know the competing perspectives that emerge every day. I could set that report up to be daily, weekly, monthly. We recently introduced hourly. So if you really want like really up-to-date information, you can do it hourly. And we're doing web searches to pull in information from the web into your reports. So in that case, this technology becomes not just a social media tool that you're pulling information from, but also it's doing these web searches and bringing in that information too from whatever niche web source, whatever niche news outlet you want to include. We're going to pull information from there too. And on that, this is the part I like to talk about with the hourly cadence. Something very cool about it is from the first report to the second report, or from the second report to the third report, it tells you what's different. There are a lot of not great AI tools out there that will like just give you the same information over and over and over again, and you have to parse through what's wrong. But what we do with Argus Social is we're telling you, here is what has changed, if that's over the last day or the last hour. And that last hour is super critical. So you don't get the same report every time. And some hours it might say, nothing has changed. And that's like a brilliant AI answer because it's true. Nothing has changed and that's okay. And so by setting up these reports, by doing this manual work to customize your views, you can make sure that the evidence that you get is going to be as useful to you as possible to trim all the fat away and get you just what you need.
Thank you. If that does it for the questions, thank you, Tom. Great, compelling use case. The example we shared will be in a white paper in the next couple weeks. If you'd like to secure a copy of that paper, please email me at ira.marcus@accrete.ai. If you'd like to get more information or get a demo of Argus social media influence, please reach out to me or the good folks at Four. And with that, thank you very much for taking some time out of your afternoon and your interest, and we hope to be hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.